Hello everyone and welcome back to the start of our new series. With the launch of Season 4, I wanted to take a slight turn away from the Zero to Heroes that we were doing in the past. And this time, I wanted to go for the title. Yep, that's right, the 0.01% title. Now the highest that I've actually ever been on any character is around 3k IO, so this is going to be a lot different. But there's not going to be any other stipulations, so we're just going to play the game as normal with friends, with groups, pugging as well, a little bit of everything, and we're just going to see how far we can get by the end of Season 4. And we are going to be doing it on my trusty Holy Paladin, which is my main, and it is not currently the best in slot healer at this time. That would go to the Restoration Druid, so it's going to make it even difficult playing a off-meta class. But hopefully, we'll see what we can do with it. So we are going to be recapping each week, doing the highlights, talking about the highs, the lows, maybe changes to the class or specs, and we'll be talking about all things Mythic Plus and Holy Paladin related here. And if you enjoy these videos, remember to like and subscribe as they support me and the channel as our tiny little community continues to grow, and I appreciate you all that have done so in the past. Alright, now let's get started on our road to title. Alright, and to get a baseline going into this very first week of Season 4, the current talent build I am going with is the Awakening build. This is the build that I have been using pretty much the entire time I've been playing. We might change this around a little bit, kind of based off of how things are feeling, but that's what I'm starting with. Our starting item level is 486. That is where we left off from Season 3. And the affixes this week are going to be Tyrannical, Storming, and Raging. And to be honest with you, I don't know how often we're going to see Raging this week in week 1, just because that final affix doesn't go into play until a +10. And if you don't remember, the dungeons did get squished, so pretty much a +10 would be equal to a +20 from last season. If you want a little bit more information about that, there is a link below to a Wowhead article talking all about the dungeons if you guys want to check that out and have no idea what I'm talking about. So that'll help you guys out a little bit. So as I was patiently waiting for Season 4 patch to finally drop, it kept getting pushed back hour after hour. It kept getting later and later in the evening for me. And I had work the next day, so it was very unfortunate. But it finally dropped and we jumped straight in to go into the Mythic Plus, and we started out with our very first key being Ruby Life Pools. Of course, it was only a +2, so it was very easy. We blew straight through this key without any issues, and we did claim our Season 4 Keystone Explorer achievement for doing a Mythic Plus this season. And with the loot drops, we did not get anything for our Paladin, and but we did +3 it, giving us that +5 no-coup defense Keystone, which we're going to go into next. Now with the dungeon squish, I didn't really know when things were going to start getting difficult, at what key level. The +5 started out really well. We had a few deaths here and there, and I know specifically for this boss, this is where I thought, if a +5 is going to be difficult, this is where I'm going to really feel it here. If you remember, this boss does a ton of pulsating damage that healers have to heal through. Obviously you have your orbs that you can pick up and get those bonuses, but it can be difficult to heal through. But luckily we blew through this boss without any issues, no problem whatsoever, and we got through this +5 easy. With the completion of that +5 no-coup, we ended up in Neltharis on a +7 as we 2-chested the dungeon, and things were going quite well. Well, I guess not, we have 11 deaths, but things, I feel like, were going quite well until we got right here to this boss, and everyone just kind of forgot the mechanics on how to do the chains. So unfortunately, with the chain situation going on here, it was a lot of healing to deal with as well when those chains did burst. We ended up not even finishing the dungeon. The key was bricked. People got frustrated and ended up leaving. And that's going to be our first bricked key of the season, is this +7 Neltharis. But that didn't deter us. We ran it back again on the +6. Swapped up a few people in and out of the group, and it went a little bit better. We still had a lot of deaths though. This dungeon has definitely been giving me some issues so far, and it will in the future for sure. But we just timed it with only 2 minutes remaining, and I ended up with the Spoils of Nelthar's Trinket, which I think is like a B tier for my current class. So not amazing, but also not terrible. So we are going to swap that out. It is a 502 item level replacing a 483, so that's a huge upgrade in just item level and base stats alone. Now to end the first day, we ended up into a +2 Uldaman. And has anyone else had the issue where you go into a dungeon thinking you know the mechanics, you've done these before, and it turns out you actually don't remember the mechanics? Because I'm almost 100% positive that this beam moves clockwise, not counterclockwise, but this thing turned on me and killed me and then went the other way. At no point in time do I ever remember that happening, and that was embarrassing. But I will say, all things considered, I have been enjoying jumping back into these dungeons that we haven't seen in quite a while, and kind of relearning the mechanics, because man, I've been getting a lot of things wrong, even though I've done these before in the past. So we gotta get our game up and figure this stuff out if we're even gonna consider going for that title. But we timed this key no problem with the +3, and that's gonna be the end for day 1, ending at a rating score of 689. So not terrible for just the few dungeons that we did, but we're gonna hit this really hard this week. This is only day 1. Now I did a few keys off stream and not recording, but not a whole lot. We're currently at a 1700 rating score at this time, going into day 3. I think we didn't get the footage for day 2. But one thing that has been super different about this week, or these dungeons in particular, is I didn't realize they did a mechanical change on a lot of these bosses. Like specifically this boss here, you no longer get slowed when you're walking around, and the shards come out at a specific percentage rather than just randomly or whatever it was before. But it's different, and I actually like the changes. I think they're really good, and I'm enjoying it, and this boss is way more pleasant to do when you're not getting slowed constantly. And we did pick up a lovely 502 ring there, but we didn't get any score because we must have done this on a +6 a little bit earlier. But we got the +1, we did time this, and we're gonna keep moving along. All right, now moving on to our +7 Algathar. How many of you guys remember Veximus? Now, I remember this fight being a little difficult, but we're gonna find out right now that it's just more than a little difficult, especially on this +7. Now again, I find it very enjoyable just to kind of figure out the difficulty, the scaling, and all that stuff in a new season. So it's been a lot of fun just kind of figuring it out, because last season a +7, you could have gone in there with barely any experience or anything and it would have been fine without any issues. But man, stuff is hitting so hard in all of these dungeons, especially this one, this Veximus fight. Man, with our low item level coming out of season 3, people are just taking hits. And I don't know if any of the other healers that are watching this can relate, but anytime a group wipes, whether it actually is or not, sometimes I take it as my fault. Like, ah man, I let the group wipe. Someone could have done something completely off the wall and wrong that caused a bunch of damage to occur and wiped the group, but still I'm like, man, I could have done something different. What could I have done different there? I should have had more healing. And that's just, this Veximus fight was really rough, because I feel like I should have been able to heal this just fine, but we did have some issues in here, just a lot of damage going out. I couldn't keep up, and we ended up dying. And with me dying, pretty much everyone kind of followed suit and died as well, and our group unfortunately fell apart. But we ran it back on the +6, and we managed to time it. I've actually been doing my key most of the time, so we've done a +6 in the past, so we're not going to get any points for this. But I have been having such a difficult time getting into groups because I'm not playing Resto Druid. Any of you guys having the same issue? Or any tanks out there have an issue getting into groups because you're not playing Demon Hunter? Yeah, it's kind of rough. I'm having the same thing as a Holy Paladin here. And to be honest, because I went out of the gate swinging with all of these keys we ran, I have a decently high IO score, But people don't really care. They're like, oh, you're not playing Druid, we're not going to take you. I don't care how high your score is or how high your item level is. Yeah, we'll wait for the Druid. And I'm sure there's plenty of DPS out there too that are having the same issue. But man, is it rough. I feel like it's almost more so this season than any other season where I've seen just the meta completely dominating groups and having it very difficult to pug into something if you're not playing that meta class. Anyone else having the same problem? So after that key, we ended up here into a +7 Halls of Infusion, and I have to ask, how many healers did you guys get to this boss and were just completely blown away? This boss is by far one of the hardest ones that I have done because of all of the pulsating ice damage that is going out. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, it's a scaling issue, this boss is overtuned. To be honest with you, it might be, I could be wrong, but I think it's more so like we're still pretty, considering all things considered, we're still pretty low of an item level going into these keys. Like a +7 is a +17 equivalent, and we're going out with just fresh gear from the last season. And on top of that, it is a tyrannical week, so these bosses are going to be a little bit harder, obviously. But man, was this a heal check. By the end of this this boss here that we did end up killing, I was over 300k HPS, which is insane. I don't ever get up that high very often. But we did make it to the end, and we did time the key. And with the +2 on there, giving us a huge +1 point to our 766 score. We have been at pretty much the same score for pretty much this entire day because we have been bricking keys constantly. So now here we ended up in a +9 Neltharis, and by far this is the hardest dungeon, I think. I mean, we talked about the difficulty of the boss from Halls of Infusion, but this dungeon, just with all the ads, the bosses, everything considered together, I think I've been having the biggest issue in this dungeon. We do end up timing it, which is awesome, but we did struggle throughout the dungeon. We had 18 deaths, and we only got 11 points for that, timing it on that +9. And we did pick up some pants here, but it's not much better. Not in our stats, and it's at the same item level, so unfortunately not really an upgrade at all. So we did run a few more dungeons after that one, just some lower keystones, leveling up our keystones and helping some friends out, get gear and stuff like that. One of the things I didn't realize is you should get this quest here in Valdrakken. This guy here will give you your spark, that way you can craft crafted gear. And I had no idea this guy was here all week long, and we finally decided to pick it up, and it changes each week. So each week you're gonna get a reputation bonus, and this week is the Dragon Isles one. Next week is going to be the Niflheim, and the week after that is going to be the Emerald Dream. And along with that comes different quests, and the rewards as such are the sparks. So every week it's going to change, so make sure that you do this quest every week, which is going to require you to go out into the world and do the community activities and whatnot, just so you can turn that in and get that spark for that crafted gear to give you that edge in those dungeons. So we did end up taking a little break from all of those Mythic Plus dungeons that we've been spamming, and we just are working here to get that crafted gear. And the first piece of crafted gear that we're going to go for is our neck piece for the Lariat. And now moving on to the highlight of our week, is we ended up here in a Ruby Life Pools, and earlier we timed a +9, so this is going to be a +10 Ruby Life Pools. And this is one of those dungeons as well that has been so difficult to do during this first week. We're going in at a 492 item level, which is still relatively low for the season, and again this is a +10, which is the equivalent of a +20. So if we end up timing this dungeon, we will be getting our first portal. Now, I'm not going to cover all the details of this dungeon, but I do want to highlight this first boss because this boss is very difficult, at least for me, in my opinion, at this item level on a tyrannical week. Anyways, I tried this boss earlier this week on a +10, and I could not get beyond this boss. I could not heal through it. I was having too many issues. So going into this +10, I was honestly kind of terrified to do this. My hands get a little shaky, I get nervous, you know, my team's relying on me to keep them alive, especially when there is so much damage going out during this dungeon, and especially during this fight. And the biggest issue that I found on this fight specifically for us healers is going to be the shield that she puts on herself while the whelps come out. During this phase, she constantly pulses damage. And if you don't have the DPS in your group that are capable of destroying that shield fast enough, it's gonna feel like you can't heal this dungeon. Now, that might be the case, maybe you're not that experienced, but if you feel like you're a very decent healer, but you're really struggling on this phase, it might be a damage issue, and that's what the issue was with this the first time I did this dungeon. Now, with the group that I'm in now, that shield bursted so fast that it only ticked 2 times, while the previous time I was in here, it was ticking 5, 6 times trying to break that shield down. And if we take a glance down in the bottom left-hand corner at our DPS currently, these guys are blasting. So, of course, we were able to quickly get through this boss, and I was able to heal through it, and I felt very good at the end. It was awesome. It was a really good time, and that just to me was like, oh hey, you know, sometimes it's not your fault. A lot of times it is, but sometimes the DPS just got to do a little bit more damage than they have been doing, and you'll be fine. So the boss does go down. We had no deaths on the boss fight. I am, however, completely I used every single thing I had to keep the group alive during that, but we did it. We made it through the first boss, which was where we got stuck previously. And to jump to the end here, we did end up timing this dungeon week 1, plus 10 ruby life pools, getting our very first portal, and gave us a fat 60 points. We're now at a score of 1837. Didn't get any loot, but man, that felt really good timing that dungeon week 1. And with that, we are off to an excellent start this season. Now, we did a few other lower dungeons after the plus 10 for this week, but nothing too crazy went on there. But then we finally decided to make our first crafted piece, which is going to be our elemental lariat. Now, from the wonderful guides on Wowhead, obviously this is my best in slot as a holy paladin for the neck piece, so that's why we're doing it. And so I would recommend looking up your best in slot before we start just crafting gear. Unless you don't care, then you know what, just craft whatever you want. But this is what I'm going with. And I'm not gonna lie, I hate crafting gear. I don't know if any of you guys have the same annoyance. You just have to jump through so many steps to buy so many different things, running back and forth. And yeah, sure, it's easy. It's just kind of annoying. And I think it was season 2. I actually didn't end up crafting a single piece of gear in season 2 because I just didn't want to do it and deal with all this. But if we are going for that 0.01% title, we do have to try to be as best as possible with the most gear, doing everything we can. So this is where we start. So to try and get as much gear as we possibly could this week, we wanted to clear Heroic Raid, because if you cleared Heroic Raid, it killed all bosses in it, you got an Awakened Mark of Mastery, which will give you a piece of your choosing, a piece of tier. And the goal is to get 4 set next week. You can only get this item once, and this is the same item that you get if you were to get 2k IO Mythic Rated score. So here we are doing Vault of the Incarnates, and we haven't been in here in a while, and it went pretty well. Now, I did all the other bosses of the raid off stream and off recording because I just, you know, wanted to vibe and chill and play. But I did end up recording Razageth. But to just talk a second about raids, they are significantly easier. We absolutely blew through Heroic, and then we also did a normal raid, and it didn't have any issues. It was completely pugged, 0 communications, and we were just ignoring most of the mechanics. So it's been very easy. The raids have been nerfed down. So if you're not into raiding, you should definitely do it because it'll get you better gear, and it's really not that difficult compared to when the raids first came out. Now here we are. We've been in this raid for probably an hour now, wiping, progressing each time, but nonetheless still wiping. And it looks like it's gonna be a kill, but it's not. Unfortunately, we went into the final phase with Raz having way too much health. Therefore, there was too much health to burn down that phase, and we wiped with 4% health left on Razageth. And it's super late at night for me right now, and I was like, man, I don't even know if I want to keep doing this. But we are determined to get the best loot possible. So we stay in for probably another hour to an hour and a half, continuing to do pulls on Raz. and it's looking really, really good here. And then all of a sudden, the whole raid pretty much goes down. Raz has a sliver of health left. She is at 1%. We are hoping that the rest of the group can just take her down, but the lightning is coming in. They're losing. They don't have enough health. There's no healer, and it's 3 guys versus Raz. 700k. We have a tank left. He hits 1% health, gets topped off, and there it is. Our Demon Hunter tank saved the day. And after all that effort, we managed to secure a kill on Razageth week 1 in Heroic. And to be completely honest with you, the only thing that I want from this raid is the Razageth skin for my dragon. So we're gonna need on everything, but unfortunately, you know, the luck was not with us. We did not win. But overall, we had a very successful week. I'm very happy with the progress I made. A lot of gear, a lot of points, and we're gonna keep pushing forward. So I appreciate you guys for sticking around and hanging out during this this new series that we're doing. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or if you have any tips and tricks, I have been playing Holy Paladin for a while, so I do know a lot. But if you feel like I'm doing something wrong, by all means, let me know. And of course, if you have any questions about Holy Paladin, I love the class. It may not be the meta currently, but we're gonna keep playing it anyways because I find it the most fun to play out of all the healers that I've played, which is pretty much all of them except a couple. And with that, guys, remember, once again, please like, please subscribe, and we'll be back with our progress report for next week.